If you and I are anything alike, then you probably follow a lot of jacked people on Instagram, and that means that you have probably heard about the hottest new influencer who is called the Liver King. The Liver King is an influencer who blew up over the last few years. He has a very specific brand. He has a big beard. He often wears, a Viking hat. He never wears a shirt. He's incredibly jacked. He loves to shoot guns. He loves to, basically rattle on about his primal tenets, which are about, living the way our caveman ancestors lived, or whatever the case is. And of course, probably the most important thing is that he eats a lot of raw meat, including liver and testicles, and he also has a big hatred for veggies. Now that Glass Onion, the movie, has recently come out, and I've seen it, I can also say that he's in some ways kind of hilariously similar to Dave Bautista's character in Glass Onion. In Glass Onion, Dave Bautista's character is a sort of MRA influencer guy who basically just really loves his gun, carries it everywhere with him, occasionally just fires it off randomly into the air, and that, maybe not so much the MRA stuff, but that really has big Liver King energy, as the kids would say these days. Liver King is also known for doing all kinds of stunts in public places. Basically he'll just go out into, the middle of a crowd and film himself being silly, shirtless. He did this in London shortly around, basically around the time that the Queen died, which I thought was a little tacky. But the influencer grind set never dies, man. It's always ongoing. You gotta be grinding every single day. Recently, Liver King has come under controversy because the entire time Liver King has been insisting that he is natural, he is natty, he is not doing the steroids, he is not hopped up on the goofy juice. Which seems a little bit silly because he has such an absurdly good physique, and a lot of people in the fitness industry have been saying the entire time, hey, I think that this Liver King guy might be on steroids. I think this guy might be enhanced. I think it is very likely. And he has been saying, no, I am not on steroids. I have simply been following my ancestral tenets. I simply have been, practicing what I preach in terms of just exercising all the time and eating a lot of raw meat, and that is why I am so jacked. It's definitely not because of steroids. Well, recently the channel More Plates, More Dates did an expose in which they revealed that yes, he had in fact been on steroids and, a cocktail of other, performance-enhancing drugs the entire time. And more importantly, basically he had these email exchanges between Liver King and the coach that he was approaching for help with this process. And it revealed a kind of unabashed attitude about it, where he's basically just like, yes, I need to do this because I need to have an incredible physique so that people will, believe me as an influencer, so that I can make it as an influencer. That's kind of the vibe that you get from his emails. And so, of course, this expose came out. He then came out and, apologized for it. He came out with a kind of interesting, bizarre apology in which he said that this was kind of about his mental health and about bad body image issues and how he just kind of wanted to measure up to, basically, the physiques that he saw elsewhere, which, okay, that's one defense that you could make, but it's interesting that you've chosen to just sort of propagate that issue or extend that issue further to other people, I guess. And I think probably the most interesting thing is that, people have done a bit of research into the Liver King. In particular, the QAnon Anonymous podcast has recently been doing a series called Man Clan, in which they dig into, basically like male influencers. And they did a whole episode about him in which they revealed that, basically he was pretty wealthy before he did all this. This is all sort of a vanity project that he's doing just because he wants to become an influencer. And so it seems very much like this is a pretty cynical move by him, in which he created this character very intentionally, even though it probably doesn't really reflect much of anything like, what his real life looks like. And, he's doing so basically just to make money and to gain fame and influence and to take the Instagram world by storm. So a lot of people have done a lot of different analyses of the Liver King so far and who he is and so on. And this video is probably coming a little bit late to the party. But what I wanted to talk about today is why it is that we believe the Liver King. Why did we buy into, the whole shtick? Because I think that that's a much more important, less explored part of the story, is why we believed him, even though in many cases I would say it was kind of obvious that a lot of it was BS. So I would say that Liver King is to me sort of the latest in a long line of fitness industry influencer grifters, and there's a pretty standard formula at this point, which, makes it very easy to gain a following online. So the first one is just to be very, very jacked. The more jacked you are, the better. As long as you are as jacked as possible, that's great. Make a lot of content, as much content as you can. Show off your physique as much as possible. Show off how strong you are as much as possible. Maybe do silly tricks in the gym where you're, balancing things weirdly or throwing things or lighting things on fire, whatever the case is. Just, obviously stuff that is not actually the way that people would train, but just kind of like showing off, with, a barbell or, a dumbbell or whatever, fitnessy stuff that you can find. It also helps if you have some kind of weird, unique trick, some kind of selling point, some way that you are different than other people in terms of your training or your diet. The more outlandish, the better, because then it's like, hey, I've got these secret methods that I can sell you. I can turn that into a product. I can turn that into a coaching service. And I can then, make a lot of money off of that. And it helps if these methods are basically very controversial, or in many cases, I would just say straight up incorrect. Because when you have that controversy, then there is an absolute army of evidence-based practitioners, of, basically like other people who have their own things that they may conflict. And, if you have this strongly held opinion that is somewhat incorrect, or that is somewhat controversial, then people will fall all over themselves to give you free publicity. Like they're gonna do reaction videos to your videos, they're gonna do criticism videos of your videos, and yes, that's going to then, result in like them gaining some following and them, sort of maybe having, the sort of more trustworthy appearance because they're doing this debunking sort of strategy. But it's also just going to provide you with a lot of exposure as well. At the end of the day, some people are still going to find your content because of that, and it's going to create this impression that you're everywhere. It's going to create this virality, and, of course, it's worked out, obviously, because I am right here criticizing the Liver King, just as everyone else does. In the past, I think this was done a lot by, like, serious bodybuilders and powerlifters, like, serious competitors would kind of then try to create these personalities alongside what they were doing to kind of show off their physique. But now I would say that it's less about that, and there's a lot more people who are just kind of like standard level jacked, like, just like people who are sort of in good shape or who are sort of strong, who are able to develop a following mostly just on showing that off, more so than actually being, like the best, the most jacked, the strongest, etc. And I think that, the Liver King was the fitness influencer par excellence. He checked every single one of those boxes. He had this very rigid, very specific set of rules, some of which were pretty normal and good, and some of which were, basically just totally out there. And obviously, like we could talk about the whole raw meat thing. I don't think it deserves it. Like, I don't think that we need to justify his argument by debating it. I'm just gonna not touch it because I don't think we need to. He was as jacked as it was possible to be. He was as much of an absurd character as it's possible to be. He did as much over-the-top silly stuff as it was possible for him to do. He basically pushed all the right buttons. He did all the right things. He had all the right moves. He had this, he was like a character. It was like someone sat down in a lab and was like, how can we create like the most ridiculous fitness influencer possible? And they were like, they mixed together all the chemicals and it was like, poof, the Liver King comes out. That's what happened. And people believed him anyway because they wanted to, because he was an interesting spectacle. I've been of the, opinion all along that he was probably pretty fake. I've seen a lot of this stuff before. And of course, again, a lot of other fitness professionals were like that. But as I've noted, sometimes that's just part of, sort of the cycle. New BS grifters come along, new influencers come along with, silly stuff that they're arguing. The evidence-based fitness pros get, some level of fame or notoriety debunking that or, being in conversation with it. And the cycle continues. It just keeps happening. People keep making money. That is how it is. And yeah, I kind of knew that he was probably kind of fake all along, but I followed him anyway. I followed him anyway because I was just like, oh my God, look at this silly, stupid thing that the Liver King has done today, right? It was just like, oh yeah, it's still an entertaining show. I'm still going to watch it. I still kind of want to be up to date, aware on, what's going on here. And of course, none of this stopped him from getting a huge following. He issued his apology. It seems like he's starting to lose followers a little bit, but he still has a couple million followers. He still has a lot of defenders. there are still a lot of people, he still made a crap ton of money off of this entire thing because, it worked out. It worked. He succeeded. And that's the thing. It doesn't really matter whether or not the content that you post is real or true. It's about creating a character. It is about, sort of being there for the algorithm. It's about being viral and, being able to, pivot that into making money or, getting whatever it is that you want out of this. At the end of the day, we do need to be careful about the kinds of people that we follow online. There's just a lot of, people are just not good at sussing out when there are people who are just lying to them, in a general sense. You might be good at it if you have a lot of experience in a specific industry and you can say that person is BS or whatever the case is. But, most of the people are not going to be like me. Most of the people are not going to have a lot of experience in the fitness industry or, just a lot of experience with, sort of seeing all the stuff that happens in the fitness industry. And so they're going to see it and they're going to take his claims at face value, or they're going to say that there's some controversy, but they're going to see that he says some things that are sort of true and they're going to maybe like his vibe or whatever the case is. And they're going to believe him because that's just how it is. New people are born every day. A sucker is born every minute. And that means that there are constantly new people who are showing up to the party who, don't have any experience, who don't know what's going on, and could potentially get reeled in by this sort of thing. And that means that there are always going to then be, grifters or influencers or people who appear to take advantage of that because they can do so and they can make a lot of money. And again, that fuels this outrage machine. It then creates a lot of wasted energy where people spend all their time debating this or, addressing this or, that sort of thing. When, you could just be shutting off your Instagram and training and, moving on with your life. Not to say that logging off all the time is the only way to do things, but, be judicious, be careful about the things that you watch, be careful about the material that you expose yourself to online. So that is all for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. As always, don't hesitate to subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment down below with what you would like to see in future videos. And let me know, hey, how could I be the next Liver King, Comment down below and tell me, what you think I'm missing currently to be the next big Liver King, because that's me. I want to do that. I want all that money, right? Talk to you all next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.